Hello and welcome. This is Matthias 76. Together, we are decoding the deception, and we are continuing today our journey in Revelation in this video series that I have titled Revelation Revisited. We worked our way through the book of Revelation once, did, 70-some videos on Revelation, and completed that a while back and decided we ought to go back through because there's so much that we learned the first time. Go back and give it a second look and see what else we might find, and having a lot of fun doing that. So we're picking up here in Revelation 5. We are in this section that Revelation 4 is the great throne room scene, John being called up into that throne room. We're talking council, divine council, God's order of things, is inviting of input and counsel from his heavenly host as well as his earthly host. And now we're in the part where they're looking for someone to open the scroll that is sealed with 7 seals. In a little while, we're going to get to the beginnings of an outline for the book. We'll be talking about these different visions, but we're starting here, picking up. We'll read the last verse. And one of the elders said to me, "Weep no more. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has conquered, so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals." So we'll pick up where we're beginning today. And between the throne and the 4 living creatures, and among the elders, I saw a lamb standing, as though it had been slain, with 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God, sent out into the whole earth. And he went and took the scroll from the right hand of him who was seated on the throne. And when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each holding a harp and a golden bowl full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sang a new song. "Worthy are you to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slain, and by your blood you ransomed people for God from every tribe and language and people and nation, and you have made them a kingdom and priests to our God, and they shall reign on the earth." We'll stop there. As is always the case with the book of Revelation, there are so many things in each section of Scripture that we could go into great depth on, and time doesn't allow it, or I'd be doing, 200 videos on the book of Revelation, and that would be interesting. But we're gonna hit the big things here, talk about them, and focus on the imagery starting out here. So between the throne and the 4 living creatures and among the elders. So Jesus is there between the throne and the 4 living creatures. And what we have to remember is from the last section, the fantastic description of where the 4 living creatures were. We've got this spatial arrangement that defies our understanding. Okay. And now we've got Jesus thrown into this, a lamb standing as though he had been slain. Again, the use of prepositions in the book of Revelation remind us that we just can't comprehend everything that John was seeing. John's problem was that his ability to describe these things was limited to the Greek language that he was writing in. And the Greek does prepositions very well, but it still can't describe, they can't put together what it was John was seeing. And we need to remember that. It's a thought we need to keep in our minds throughout the book of Revelation, especially when it's talking about the things in heaven and the Father and the Son and the Spirit, 24 elders, all of that. There are things that we can't comprehend, which reminds us that our going to this place to spend eternity is most certainly something to be looked forward to. It is amazing. It defies description, but John, with the aid of the Holy Spirit, is doing everything that human language can to bring this picture to us. So we see a lamb standing as though it had been slain. That term lamb in the book of Revelation, and I'm over here, see on the right, it's right underneath me, a little bit over to the side. All of these are references to Jesus, almost all of them, to Jesus being the lamb. It's used 31 times in the book of Revelation. That's significant. That's significant more than any other title. In the book of Revelation, of all books, Jesus is referred to as the Lamb 30 times. One time, it's talking in Revelation 13:11. It's used for the beast from the earth who's trying to appear to be a lamb. He's posing as the lamb. So we've got all these references to Jesus as the lamb. And how is he standing? He's standing as though it had been slain. Now, chances are you're fairly familiar or very familiar with the book of Revelation. We read this and we can skip right over it, but let's stop and try to figure out what that means. A lamb standing as though it had been slain. What does that look like? A lamb standing as though it had been slain. Don't know. What is a lamb that looked like it had been slain but is standing there? What is this picturing? We don't know. And that's okay, but it's clear this is the Jesus who was crucified. He was slain. And make no mistake, it's pictured this way to convey the concept that the most important event in all of history was accomplished by Jesus Christ in his crucifixion and resurrection. It is where he defeated the forces of evil, one of the forces of evil being our own sin. Greatest event in all of history. And so how is Jesus pictured here? When he's being called worthy, when he's the one who has the power to open those seals, and we'll talk more about that, but he's the one who has the power to open the seals. What is it that gave him the power to open the seals? His death through which he achieved victory. We die spiritually to our sin so that through Jesus Christ, we're baptized into his death and his resurrection. It is through the humility of faith that says, I am nothing. I am a wretch. We'll sing it, but we don't spend a whole lot of time, probably not enough time, I don't, thinking about what it means. Who saved a what? A wretch like me. It is through recognizing what I am compared to what is demanded by God that I really appreciate who he is and what he did, and he took my punishment so that I could be his again. So we've got this lamb standing as though it had been slain. He's the one who's worthy to reveal these things. He's the one, I'll just throw out a hint here, he's the one who has the power over these things. He's the only one who can open it. He has power over it. He rules all things. And how else is he described? With 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God. 7, that number that represents God's interaction with this world, is most often his saving interaction with this world. And I will go so far as to say it always includes that component. Even in judgment, God's judgment on sin is salvation for us. But it's God's interaction. 3 is God, 4 the world. We're going to see that in just a moment made very clear, the 4 for the world. His interaction with the world. And what do horns symbolize? Power. If you've ever been around animals with horns, you're very careful. Those horns, and most of us are, when it comes to things livestock and in the wild, because of where we live, for most of us, not all of us, but for most of us, we're pretty ignorant of how that works. And that's probably because we haven't been pushed around by a bull with those horns, or even a ram with its horns. You don't want to mess with them. You don't want to mess with them. Power is symbolized by horns and eyes. What do eyes do? They see. If you've got 7 eyes, you can see everything. Okay? And here we have combined the working of the Spirit who sent out into the world through whom? By Jesus Christ and the Father. Here pictured together with Jesus as being sent out into all the earth. There's nothing that he misses. Apply that to yourself, your own life. Sometimes we feel alone. We feel no one knows. And sometimes in a worldly sense, that can be true. But the one who we want to know, the one who is most important, he sees, he knows, he understands. We can go to the other side with the concept of judgment, that everything is uncovered and laid bare before the eyes of him to whom we must give account. You cannot escape him. And so later we will see the high and the mighty, the princes and the lords of this world, cowering in caves and telling the rocks to fall on them to hide us from whom? The Lamb, rejecting the sacrifice of the Lamb for your salvation carries a steep price, judgment, and the fear accompanying that judgment. So we've got the Lamb standing as though it had been slain with 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. Now, what does that lamb look like? Pretty interesting looking lamb. It is being pictured this way. Christ is presenting himself this way. Make no doubt, this is exactly how John saw Christ here, because the image conveys all of these messages. How long has it taken me with my feeble efforts to just try to catalog most of what this means? Pictures are powerful. Pictures are powerful. And he went and took the scroll from the right hand of him who was seated on the throne. He went and he took it. He had the power to take it. It was his to take. He is the one who is worthy. And we're going to, it's abundantly clear here, we're going to see, not only John, but everyone else wants to see this. We've got a good bit of dramatic build-up here. He went and took the scroll from the right hand of him who was seated on the throne. And when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each holding a harp and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. One of the things that I enjoy most in the book of Revelation is that these 24 elders who have these lofty, exalted positions, and make no mistake, that is what these 24 elders have. They've got thrones, and right there along with the 4 living creatures, what do? They fell down before the Lamb. Nothing that they have is their own. Nothing that they have, those thrones that have been granted them by whom and how was that brought about? We've got that Lamb who appeared as though it had been slain. Everything that we have, everything that we are, even if you're, and I'm certainly not one of those who's going to be the 24 elders around the throne, it's about Christ's blessing, his gift, that immeasurable gift being bestowed, in this case, upon the 24 elders. And so rightly, who are they to sit there on their thrones before him? No, they fall down and they worship, and they do it all the time. They're always falling out of these thrones, prostrate on the floor before the Lamb, because that's the only place for us to be in his presence. And it's a glorious thing. It's a wonderful thing to be able to be there worshiping him. And each holding a harp and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. A harp, symbolic of music, praise. And it is my contention that music was created for the praise of God, praising of God, singing his glory. And not that we shouldn't sing about other things, but in the satanic realm in which we exist here, music is turned around to the glory of the musician and not the Lord. But here, they've got their harps and golden bowls full of incense. And let me see here. There are 3 times. Here, Revelation 14, where we've got the future assembly of all the saints, in Revelation 15, which is the prelude to the 7 bowls of God's wrath. they've got these harps they're talked about. Golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. And in the temple, and incense was used, burn up. It was a sweet smelling aroma, but it went up with the prayers. The picture of incense, what it brought to mind was our prayers ascend to the Lord. Later, those bowls are going to get poured out as wrath. Make no mistake, what is a blessing to the believers, to the saints, is judgment, condemnation, punishment on the unbelievers. It is the way it works. The faith relationship that we have with the Lord changes everything for us. We are spared the judgment that we rightly deserve because that judgment was poured out on Christ on the cross. Your sin, my sin. God made him who knew no sin to be sin for us so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Reject that act of mercy and ultimate sacrifice that Christ took your damnation and your hell and suffered it on the cross, and the consequences are damnation and hell. You want it for yourself, you get it for yourself. It's not a pretty picture, but it is a recurring theme here in the book of Revelation, and our prayers are pictured as part of what's poured out in wrath on the lost, on the opposition to Christ and his reign and his rule. All of these things will be amplified more fully as we move through the book. They sing a new song, new. Here is that new again. This is the new that isn't about time specifically. It is new as in completely different. Something altogether different, and because of that, glorious and wonderful. Okay, and what is the song? Worthy are you to take the scroll and open its seals, for you were slain, and by your blood you ransomed people for God from every tribe, language, people, and nation, and you have made them a kingdom and priests to our God, and they shall reign on the earth. The picture of salvation, the greatest thing ever done. You were slain, and by your blood you ransomed people for God. The blood of Christ, because it was the blood of God, God made man, could pay the price for the sins of the whole world. That's exactly what is being stated here. You were slain, and by your blood you ransomed people for God. And we've got from, out of every tribe, language, people, and nation. This phrase, and how many things do we count off here? I've got tribe, language, people, and nation. I say all the time, I'm not good with math, but I can count to 4. 4, the number of the earth, like the 4 corners, like the 4 winds, right? 4 is the number of the earth. So every time this phrase and the words, the titles, tribe, language, nation, and people, they vary. Sometimes there's a shifted word, but it's always 4 here. Interestingly, in Daniel, it's 3. We've got a similar picture in the book of Daniel that occurs repeatedly, but it's only 3 there. But every time this appears, it's talking about the unregenerate world, those who are not saved, okay? And that we know that's true because every time it occurs, every place, and they're listed out over here, again, underneath me and a little bit to the side, all of these instances where it occurs, and you can screenshot that and go look them up, every time it's talking about the lost. The lost. You once were lost, but now are found because he was slain, and by your blood you ransomed people for God. That's us. That's where we are. People for God. Ransomed. Jesus did it. Where? From? Where did he find us? From every tribe, language, people, and nation. And we think about the mission that Christ sent us out upon, the mission that was begun back in Genesis 12. Abram, he had set the nations aside and put them under the Elohim, the sons of God, who went rogue and rebelled against him and took the nations with them all the further away from God. But the plan, you can click there. It takes you right to the Amazon listing for Supernatural. I highly recommend reading it. This is from his slightly more extensive work, Unseen Realm, and I'm just going to read it because I want to give you an idea of what he's talking about. Israel's status as Yahweh's own portion was not an end in itself, but the means by which Israel would draw all nations back to Yahweh. And there he's got Bible references. This is the idea behind Israel being a kingdom of priests. And I really think this is translated better here, a kingdom of priests. A kingdom of priests and a light to the nations. It's no wonder that the book of Revelation uses the same language of believers in Revelation 5:10. Well, guess where we are? A divine council scene in connection with ruling over all the earth. The entire nation inherited the status and duty of Abraham, that through him and now them, that's us, all nations would be blessed. So Genesis 12:3 brought full circle, right? Here in this throne room scene where Jesus is the one who is worthy. Then I looked and heard around the throne and the living creatures and the elders the voice of many angels, numbering myriads of myriads and thousands of thousands, saying with a loud voice, "Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive." And what do we have here? Let's count. Power, wealth, wisdom, might, honor, glory, blessing. 7, that interaction of God with the world, with the emphasis always, because the emphasis with God always is salvation. God desires all men to be saved and come to a knowledge of the truth. He desires to damn none. It's their choice, not his. And I heard every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and in the sea and all that is in them. We've got that picture again of the entire spiritual realm, the entire human realm, and even more, we could say, the animal kingdom. And they are praising him because everything is made subject to the Lamb. Everything in the end is subject to the Lamb, and then he hands it back over to the Father, to him who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb be blessing, honor, glory, might, and might forever and ever. And the 4 living creatures said, Amen. What do the elders do? At some point, they hop back in their thrones, and the elders fell down and worshiped. Just everything's about Jesus. You know, we have this courtroom scene here, this throne room scene where this drama is played out for your benefit and for mine, for John's benefit. Who is it who has power over all of this? Who can open it up? Who can tell us what is to come? Who has power over what is to come? And I will throw in here again, the theme of the book of Revelation is Jesus always wins. I want you to think about that right now. Think of this scene. Think of this image. And I don't care what comes later. I do, but it doesn't matter what comes later. It cannot detract from the glory of this, the power that is portrayed here. It can't come close. It can't come close. You can't undo this. This is a God thing, an almighty thing. Jesus always wins. So we apply that in the book of Revelation and we apply that in our lives. Yeah, scary stuff happens, right? Things that are far beyond our control, and it makes us feel like little frightened children. Well, nothing frightens the Lamb who once was slain, who now is ruling over all things, and we're with him. Because Jesus always wins, we always win. If I had a store, we'd have mugs and t-shirts. Jesus always wins. Jesus always wins. He always does in everything. All right. Next time, we're going to get into the 7 seals, the opening of the 7 seals. But what I want to do now, because we need to address kind of the layout of the book. You can call it an outline. I hate outlines. Can I just say that? Does that make me a bad person or a bad pastor or theologian if I tell you that I hate outlines? That I used to loathe and despise the beginning of a class where the professor started off with the syllabus. I can read the syllabus. I don't need you to go over it with me. And the outline of whatever. You want to suck the life out of something and make it no fun. Give me an outline. Give me an outline, right? So I'm going to try to do an outline slightly differently and try not to suck all the fun out of it and make it interesting. And I'm going to use pictures because I like pictures. And how we're going to do it is also flexible, because you have to be flexible with the book of Revelation. We're going to focus in on, and this isn't the whole thing, but we're going to focus in on first just the progression of things in the book, how they are presented. And then later, we're going to have a separate outline that talks about where things are concurrent more completely, because there is in the book of Revelation all kinds of repetition. Okay. And I want to make sure that you understand that it's more than my contention. It's my absolute belief that the millennium, as it is taught in Christendom today, it is written over the text of the book of Revelation and the rest of Scripture, because what is taught as a millennium today cannot be found in the Scriptures. And we torture the text and its intent when we try to superimpose a millennium over it. What I encourage you to do is have an open mind and listen to my presentation as we move forward and consider the possibilities. Consider the possibilities, and we will as time goes on. I have already a little bit, but talk about the origins of the teaching of the millennium as it is taught in Christendom today, and we'll revisit that. So let's get to where we're starting out here. This was the beginning of the book. We've got Jesus there among the 7 lampstands, 7, notice, 7, and then we've got John sending letters to the 7 churches: Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. And that is the way it goes. If you're drawing a loop, it is as though Paul, I just put Paul in the book of Revelation. Oh, next we'll have Moses on the ark and Noah on the mountain getting the law. If John were to ride a circuit going around to these churches, that is exactly the order in which they are presented. Okay, so the 7 letters to the 7 churches from Jesus, who later is pictured with 7 horns and 7 eyes. Here he's standing among the 7 lampstands, and in his hand, you can't see it very well here, but 7 stars, 7, 7, 7, all over the place. And then right now, we're just finishing up this fantastic throne room scene. And I like this image, and all of them are going to have shortcomings. You've got these people with artistic talent, and I will readily confess I have none. I literally can't draw stick people. That's how bad I am. If you have people laugh at your stick people when you're drawing on a whiteboard, they're bad. They're bad. And the funny thing is, my father's by training a professional artist. Anyway, this is a fantastic picture because it just conveys just the majesty of the whole thing. And it kind of has that sense of being other, being different and distinct, and possibly trying to capture some of the funky spatial relationships that John's trying to get with where the position of things, where that takes place. Okay. Now, here is the concept. This image, I managed to get AI to actually come up with this, and the person has 2 hands, and surprised. If you've ever tried to generate images with AI, you find that it can be rather otherworldly what it might generate as far as where thumbs are and where a head might just appear for no reason whatsoever. We've got somebody holding a gem, a diamond in this instance. And if you want to understand much of the book of Revelation, take this image and implant it in your mind, in your scheme of understanding for the book of Revelation, because we're looking at this diamond this way, right? And you can turn it and look at it from a different angle, and we see it differently. There are other things revealed, right? And then you turn it another way, and you see other things that you hadn't seen before. Is it still the same diamond? Yes, it's still the same diamond, the same gem. And if you want to substitute an emerald or a ruby, which would be my preference, because diamonds really aren't worth anything. It's an artificial market entirely, which is kind of emblematic about wealth in this world. Turn it another way and it looks like something else, but it's still the same gem. It's still the same diamond, the same emerald, the same ruby. We're just looking at it differently. And so what we're going to see next, we'll keep it so we can still see the gem here. We have 4 sets of 7, and a careful examination will show that these sets of 7, we've got the 7 seals. That's what these are here. If I will blow it up more, we've got Jesus opening the 7 seals. It's got it as 7 scrolls, artistic renderings. That's one view of this age of the church. We'll get to that. We've got the 7 trumpets. We've got the 7 visions. I didn't have a graphic for that. I just had to kind of fake it with John here on the island of Patmos and 7 visions. And then the 7 bowls of God's wrath. All of these are talking about the same period of time. Now there's one missing. I know there's at least one of you out there saying, hey, wait a minute, there's another set of 7, and that's true. That is the 7 thunders. The 7 thunders. And the 7 thunders, John's told, don't write that down. It's sealed up. They're not supposed to know. Which is to say there are things pertaining to this age of the church, the 1,000 years, that we don't get to know in advance. And I spend a lot of time wondering, what's in those 7 thunders? Just innocent speculation and wondering. But you'll see here, we've got this time frame. See these big long arrows? Every one of these sets of 7, here's part of my argument, if you will, for why these are all talking about the same thing. All 4 of them end with the same thing: Christ's return and judgment. Every one of them ends with Christ's return and judgment. This is the period of the 1,000 years. 1,000 years. What does 1,000 represent? Completeness. And it's a long time. The book of Revelation, I contend, uses the 1,000 years, and not just me, but others contend, uses the 1,000 years as the age of the church. You are in the age of the church. It began with Jesus' ascension and his sending the Great Commission, sending the church out to reclaim the nations, all of that time until he returns. So all of these are different. I hope that didn't happen with you here today. Do encourage you, if you have prayer requests, in the description down below is a link. Click on that link. It will take you to my website, decodingthedeception.com. There on that website at decodingthedeception.com, it will take you right to the link where you can send something to me, and you can send your prayer requests. We would like to, myself, along with my faith community here, would like to be praying for you and the things that are a concern to you. So feel free to send those. And as you're there at the website, check it out and see the different resources that are there. There's a lot of good stuff out on the website. This is Matthias 76. Together, we are decoding the deception. God bless and have a great day.